Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Joe for Love. Here's your AEW Fight for the Fallen 2021 review. Thank you for joining me. We can see I have my new Kenny Omega t-shirt or tank top here for AEW review. First time wearing it. I figured what better time for the Fight for the Fallen review. But nonetheless, was a really good show. Fight for a Fallen was a success, and more hints at CM Punk's eventual debut, it appears, for AEW. We also got word on Hiroshi Tanahashi, who is come gunning for the IWGP United States Championship, as well as the war between Nick Gage and Chris Jericho. Man, that was something. That was something. In Labor 2 of Jericho and MJF's 5 labors in order labors of Jericho in order to get to MJF. But we'll go over all that. Uh, Again, thank you for joining. If you're new to the podcast, if you liked this video, click the like button, and be sure if you want to see more, click that subscribe as well. Help up the channel if you want to see the rest of my AEW pro wrestling reviews on the channel, as well as sports OD topics where I cover sports coverage and news. So be sure to click that as well. But now getting into the show. The show started off in a heck of a way. I did not think, well, looking back at it, it was better to have this match as the opening act. The Elite versus Hangman Page and the Dark Order. 5-on-5 elimination match. If Hangman and the Dark Order win, they get Hangman not only gets his world title shot at Kenny Omega, but the Dark Order get a tag team title shot versus the Young Bucks. Now, of course, if the Elite won, no title shots for any of the Dark Order, but nonetheless, first of all, the entrances to both stables, I must say, were really good. Really good. So, we have video package of a cowboy vignette for Hangman and the Dark Order prior to their entrance. And then one by one, a Dark Order member was shown on the stage. And then all of a sudden, we hear, because they have the silhouette, they have that opening in the middle. And then all of a sudden, we hear Hangman Page's music hits, and then boom, the place went on fire. So, not actually, but the crowd was on fire for Hangman. So, they came out, they were wearing those cowboy handkerchiefs on their necks, purple for the Dark Order. So, good, nice touch. Uh, or bandanas, whichever you want to call them. Uh, they were purple, and then when they got to the ring, so beautiful shot as well. The rest of the Dark Order, they came up with their hand signal as well as hanging out on Page. She had his, so That was a good shot. And then the Elite, they made their entrance, and because Space Jam and the new movies has been out, but so they were introduced like a NBA team, one by one, and they were all in jerseys and basketball shorts. It was a funny touch, a battle of the opposites. You know, you got the cowboy looking gang versus the basketball, really Space Jam like AI hoop. They were shooting baskets, they were dunking. Uh, K Omega, he airballed one, but it is what it is. The match was good, however, really good. And I mean, with these multi-man tag team matches, they tend to cluster up uh, an opening of a show, but with the elimination aspect and many guys were able to get their shine, uh, this is actually good for the first half hour of the show. So, four men of the elite, they went for uh, in sync suplexes on members of the Dark Order, but in a beautiful counter, all four members they countered to suplexes of their own. That was a nice spot. So, got a superplex by Reynolds because usually there's going to be a chaos spot or a Tower of Doom spot with these multi man matches. So they were on the top rope. The rest were fighting on the outside. Alex Reynolds, he did a superplex from the top rope on Nick Jackson onto everyone on the outside. So there's that spot. Then Alex Reynolds and John Silvers, they went for their beautiful counter stutter roll up combination on Carl Anderson for near fall. And then we got our first elimination when Carl Anderson he rolled up Reynolds from behind, uh, hooked the tights, and eliminated Alex Reynolds. And then the Dark Order fall back. Uh, Grayson and Uno they hit an assisted powerbomb blockbuster on Carl Anderson, which eliminated him. Then a 450 for a 2 count by Stu Grayson on Doc Gallows. And then in a crazy spot, it looked like could have been, it was very narrow from being dire, but luckily it worked out okay. Stu Grayson, he landed a twisting dive off the, or corkscrew dive off the top rope onto the rest of the members on the outside, and he looked like he almost his his leg or his head possibly on the ramp, but he seemed okay. So then he and Doc Gallows were brawling on the outside. They fought into the crowd. Grayson he had a dive off the stands onto Gallows, and they were counted out. Both of them were counted out. So there's that. And so it was left to 3-on-3 for each side. Uno Grace, or Uno, Silvers, and Hangman versus the Young Bucks and K Omega. So I was not a big fan because once you left the champions versus Hangman, it kind of gave it away, seemingly. Because you know how, because AEW kind of does it the right way when it comes to champions, where they don't have their champions lose on TV a lot. So you knew that, okay, if Hangman was going to win at the Dark Order, then there would have to be all the champions left, and that would be kind of a sour note for some of these people that like to nitpick and say, "Oh, well, WWE did this, and now AEW's doing this," but it was kind of a it left a thought in people's minds, like, okay, maybe this is how it's gonna play out. So then Uno and Omega, they were exchanging the ring. Uno landed a flatliner for near fall, went for a top rope senton, but missed. Got the knee instead. Uno then was hit with a V trigger, then one winged angel, which eliminates Evil Uno. Now it's 3-2. Young Bucks and Omega versus Hangman and John Silvers. So they showed during the break that there was a power bomb by on Hangman to the apron area, which took him out for part of the rest of the match, a good portion. So they showed, so they had the basket where they were shooting baskets in. So they had John Silvers on the outside, and Brandon Cutler, he got the hoop and then brung it near, and they were gonna try to do a dunk in the taker on John Silver's on the outside. Well, it looked good at first, but so they landed the Indy taker on the outside, but Nick Jackson could not dunk it through the hoop. So they eventually got the basket in and said that was supposed to how it that was how it was supposed to look. So, but nonetheless, Silvers, he was out, and then they pinned Silvers in the ring, and then he was gone. So now it's left to 3-on-1. Hangman versus Young Bucks and Omega. Now, talk about poetic, because how this kind of storyline started with Omega and Page was when Hangman and Omega, when they were tag team champions, they were feuding with the Bucks prior to Revolution of last year. So, very poetic that Hangman would have to go through all three in order to get his title shot and to keep the Dark Order's tag title shot alive. So, we saw Omega and Page, they were exchanging, and Page did all he could. Uh, he did land a double buckshot lariat on both the Bucks. He did eliminate Matt Jackson, but the numbers game caught to Page. He landed a dead eye on Kenny for a near fall. He took a belt shot from with the AEW title by Kenny for a near fall, but the numbers game with Nick Jackson, he pulled the leg of Hangman when he was going for the buckshot on Kenny, but Omega, he followed up, hit the one winged angel on Page, and gets the win for the Elite. So, Hangman, he's out of the out of the top five, excuse me, as the rankings go, and the Dark Order do not get their shot to tag titles. So now that leaves the question. So that means we're not gonna get Hangman versus Kenny at All Out. We're gonna get someone else. Now, it could be different, but after this result, it got me thinking of the three ideas for who Omega could face, possibly at All Out. So, we know CM Punk is reportedly signed Daniel Bryan, but I don't think. I still think he's gonna debut at Arthur Ashe Stadium on the 22nd of September. So he's probably out. But one that I want to see because before Osprey got hurt and with the travel restrictions with New Japan, I was gonna I was hoping it'd be Osprey versus Omega All Out, but that is not the case. So I'm hoping that now because last I checked, Shingo Takagi is the New Japan Heavyweight Champion. So perhaps we get Shingo versus Omega. I don't know if that's a possibility, but those were the possibilities for Omega which appeared in my head. So then we had Tack. He was confronted backstage by Chavo and Andrade Del Idolo. They said, or they talked about how the Lucha Brothers have had issues with their travel, how they're stuck at the airport, and Chavo and Andrade said, well, they took care of it. That they sent a limo to pick them up, and they'll be riding in style. So kind of build up of we get Andrade first in a triangle, and then after Andrade, he recruits the Lucha Brothers, and they join him after. But these matches are gonna be really fun, really fun. So then we have Ricky Starks, his FTW title celebration. So Taz was on a podium up above near the stage area. Then Ricky Starks and Hook came out. I didn't see Hobbs. I'm not sure if he was there, but well, I didn't see him. So they had a band surrounding the ring. He had many different players of instruments. So Starks, he got in the ring He talked about his neck injury coming back. He called Cage selfish for not checking up on him. Said he didn't care when he was on the sidelines. And he said he had no charisma, that even when he was next to him, his charisma couldn't rub off on Cage. So the Cage, he heard enough. His music played. He came out and he took apart a tuba player, a drum player, and then he took trombone from the trombone guy, broke it in half, and then he chased Ricky Starks, but Starks he hightailed it with his title, hit hook left, and that was how the segment ended. Now we may get one more match between Starks and Cage at All Out. That's just a thought. We still have a month away. But I just hope that this. I mean, I'm fine with one more match, but I'm kind of. I want to see Starks and Taz. They venture off to something else, as well as Cage. Excuse me. And them trying to push him as a caliber babyface. So then we get Hiroshi Tanahashi. Hiroshi Tanahashi, one of the best in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and one of the best performers, nonetheless, I would say, around the world. So, Tanahashi, he appeared on the Titantron. He had a message for AEW and said that he is gunning for the IWGP United States Heavyweight Championship, and he will challenge the winner of later of the match between Archer and Hikuleo for the IWGP US title. So the Forbidden Door, they said, was more open, and Tanahashi, that's a big get so far. Now, of course, there's still Okada, and there's still Cobb, and Zack Sabre, and etc. So, but talk about a big move as far as the Forbidden Door is concerned. So then we got Santana Ortiz versus FTR. Of course, this was a match I was very much that many people were looking forward to. Uh, I was curious though because this match had a bunch of build going into it, and with the result of the earlier elimination match between the Dark Order and the Elite, I was a little surprised by the outcome, but at the same time, it seemed with this injury that happened that there was an audible call for the ending. What I mean is, well, we'll get into the match. So, FTR came out with Tully Blanchard, Santana Ortiz, they originally came out with the rest of the Pinnacle, but they left, and it was just them and Tully Blanchard. Santana Ortiz were out there with Conan. So this is kind of a blood feud, a grudge feud because of the inner circle versus the Pinnacle. So they did mostly exchanging and brawling for part of the match. Then there was a reverse DT powerbomb combination by Santana Ortiz. Then while Ortiz was getting beat up for part of this match, it was a hot tag to Santana. He ran wild. So then there was a frog splash powerbomb combination by Santana Ortiz for near fall. Then Ortiz got his offense in. He landed a tornado DT, or excuse me, the FTR they fall back was a tornado DT by Cash Wheeler, and then Santana followed up with a power bomb for a near fall. Then back again with a tag to Ortiz. So this was the injury that May saw, which pretty much led to the finish. So FTR they went for their superplex frog splash combination, which they like to go. So Dax he was up. He went for the superplex, and Cash Wheeler he was on the other turnbuckle, and I'm not sure. I looked away, but perhaps it was because of him or not. But Ortiz he was there, or excuse me, Santana he was there, and it looked like Cash he slipped, and his forearm hit the sharp part of the turnbuckle, and had a bad cut on the inside of his forearm, and that was the last we saw of him in this match. He went over to get attended to by doctors, but so Dax he went for, or excuse me, so Santana he landed a DT on Cash, and then he went over to get checked up on. So then Dax hit a superflex on Ortiz for a near fall. Then out of nowhere, Dax Harwood went with a brainbuster for the win, and FTR wins this match. Now, I hope Cash Wheeler is okay. We know FTR is one of the best tag teams in the world, and we know that with their schedule that they don't show up every week. So, I mean, them just coming back and now Cash suffers this injury, it's unfortunate. And at the same time, with this win, it kind of puts them in a flux because the Young Bucks won. So, and the Elite won. So, that's the other question of who does the Young Bucks face all out because Dark Order lost, so they don't get their shot. Santana Ortiz they win here, so I think their plan is for a rematch with Santana Ortiz versus FTR all out. But hopefully this injury doesn't affect them for all out. It's just a question now of who the Bucks face for tag team titles. So we had Britt Baker she was backstage. She talked about how she broke her wrist versus now Rose. Yeah, she still made her tap out to the lockjaw. So she was there with the cast, and she talked about how she needs to get better protection around her, and they better watch out. So we'll see. We'll see what Britt Baker has up her sleeve. But now, whether it's actually true or not, if she actually broke her wrist, I'm not sure, but I doubt we'll see her wrestle until All Out in Chicago. So we had Tony Khan's announcement, of a new live event. So he didn't announce it. Tony Schiavone did on behalf of Tony Khan, which is a good thing. It shows how Tony Khan is a fan of pro wrestling and he's putting his talent over himself. He says how it's not his show, it's their show. So, but Tony Schiavone, he was on the stage and he announced that the second episode of Rampage, August 20th, will be in Chicago in the United Center, which I looked and the capacity is over 20,000 fans for the United Center. So, little hits. So, I don't think they would be announcing this, and I don't think anyone would think that they wouldn't announce it in that venue on Rampage if it wasn't for CM Punk. So, people, including me, originally thought, well, All Out was going to be the best place to debut Punk in Chicago. Well, now the United Center on August 20th, which is on SummerSlam weekend, that is just, it's a big hit. It is big. Well, and also what we heard afterwards was a short promo by Darby Allin. He said how he'll be in Chicago and that the one place to prove how good you are is AEW. And that is even if you're the best in the world. So, CM Punk's nickname, CM Punk being called out by Darby Allin, that's a heck of a first opponent for CM Punk, if it's true. And I would love to see that match. That is, plus, that is big praise for Darby Allin if CM Punk chose his first opponent to be Darby. So that is something. So then we had Hikuleo versus Lance Archer. This was good for what it was. Hikuleo, the son of Haku, his father, he accompanied him to the ring. So good stuff. He and his father, they both had Bullet Club shirts on. So, good touch. Hikuleo, he's tall, he's big. Like, jeez. He's probably around 7 foot, something like that. But So Archer, he came out, got a big reaction in Charlotte. He had his hand taped up from the Texas Death Match with Mox the last week. So wasn't a long match. It was kind of short, but still good for it nonetheless. Hikuleo. I mean, I don't follow New Japan much. I mean, I follow it sometimes, but Hikuleo did some good stuff. I mean, didn't look out of place. Landed a nice power slam, landed some good chops. But Archer, he landed a superplex, a big superplex for both those big guys for their fall, and then he won with the blackout. Or Archer retains, and he will face Tanahashi in New Japan for the IWGP US Championship on August 14th, which is a Saturday, the day after Rampage. So interesting. But it's just good nonetheless for Archer to be relevant and to have some. I mean, with the IWGP US Championship, he's basically the representative, really, of, or the common denominator, really, between New Japan and AEW. So that kind of shows what the IWGP US Championship means, really. That makes it mean more for Lance Archer. Nonetheless, that's really good, and I'm sure that match between Archer and Tanahashi is going to be very good. So then we cut to Cody Rhodes. He was in Gorilla. He was being asked by Alex Marvez thoughts on his match with Malachi Black for next week in Daly's place. So then before Cody could really say anything, because he was in Gorilla, he was next to Jerry Lynn and Tony Khan. He was ambushed by Malachi Black. So they were brawling, and they got to the entranceway, and then they were separated by officials and members of the roster. And then poor Fuego del Sol. Oh man. So Malachi Black, he was being separated from Cody. So he was backing off, and then Fuego, he went to check on Cody Rhodes, and he got decked and with a black mass, and man, poor Fuego. But oh man, I just can't wait for this match next week. It should be fun for Jacksonville. Last time they'll be in Jacksonville for a while. So then we had a promo by Miro, God's favorite champion, he said. Oh man. Oh, Miro, Miro, Miro. So he got a promo on Lee Johnson. Apparently next week in Jacksonville, he'll defend his TNT championship versus Lee Johnson. And that no one can stop the Redeemer. He said that all he needs is God and a double jointed wife. And Miro. So we're gonna get Miro versus Lee Johnson next week for TNT Championship. I mean, another big test for Lee Johnson. I mean, we obviously don't expect Lee Johnson to beat Miro. It's just another test in showing Miro's dominance as TNT champion. So we had Private Party and Angelico of the Hardy family office versus Jurassic Express and Christian Cage. So this was okay. I mean, I had it in the back of my mind of could we potentially see Christian Cage turn on Jungle Boy here? I mean, it was in the back of my mind, but nonetheless, this was okay. So, just primarily to get Christian another win, so that way, when he turns on Jungle Boy, in which I presume they'll be facing at All Out, Jungle Boy gets the big one there and would be interesting. But this is okay. Excuse me. Jurassic Express and Christian, they won with a choke slam, frog splash combination for the win. So they chased off Matt Hardy, and then the Blade, who's also a part of the Hardy family office. So afterwards, Christian, he was high fiving fans and greeting fans. And then all of a sudden, he gets knocked out and whacked by the Blade with brass knucks, and Chris Gage knocked out, and Jurassic Express check up on him. And apparently next week, another match, we got Christian Cage versus the Blade. So again, it'll all be about getting Christian another win, and hopefully we'll see. But we may get Christian turning on Jungle Boy either not next week, but the week after. Hopefully. So then we got Julia Hart versus Thunder Rosa. I mean, Thunder Rosa back on AEW. This is actually her first match on AEW as an official member of the AEW roster. Thunder Rosa. So good for AEW for officially signing Thunder Rosa against Julia Hart, who, I mean, I love the Varsity Blondes. They're a good act. They'll be tag team champions in the future. I very much assume. With Julia Hart now being on with the Varsity Blondes, I mean, she's very young. I believe she's in her teens. Against the Rosa, that's a big task. And, you know, they've tried to get her over on Dark. This was, I mean, it wasn't terrible, I would say, but no Thunder Rosa get the win with her Thunder Driver, and there's that. So then we had John Moxley. He was backstage. He claims that Hiroshi Tanahashi is ducking him. He was upset that how after he lost the title to Archer, that all of a sudden Tanahashi wants to gun for the U.S. Championship, but he said that he's going to be looking for New Japan and try to venture off who he wants to go after. So there's that. Tanahashi versus Jon Moxley is a match I would look forward to. But right now, because I don't think Archer is going to lose that title right now to Tanahashi. So we'll see. Now the main event. This was crazy. This was ay. It was not for the weak in heart. Chris Jericho versus Nick Gage. I mean, they showed the highlights of Nick Gage in the video package. They showed. I saw little bits of his match with Matt Cardona the other day for GCW. Ay. This match, not much to say. Just getting into this match. So it was a no rules match. MJF, he was on commentary. He had popcorn. Kind of wish I had popcorn when I was watching this match. Ay. So, Gage, he had his signature pizza cutter with him. He has a spine buster on Chris Jericho, who is there as the Painmaker. He sliced Jericho's arm. So, getting quick off the bat. Then Gage, he was thrown to the barricade. There was a superplex Falcon Arrow by Gage for a near fall. Then Jericho was thrown into the ring post. And then next thing you know, they start getting weapons from outside underneath the ring. So Gage gets out a whole bunch of light tubes. And then Jericho, he gets out his trusty bat, Floyd, from underneath the ring. So they get into the ring, and Jericho wails on him with the bat. And then Gage got the advantage back with his light tubes, and then carved Jericho's face or his forehead with the pizza cutter. And then they got back from break because I watched the first half live, and then I went and then I recorded the second half of Dynamite, so I was able to skim through the commercials. Just hard to watch the picture-in-picture, especially if recorded. So I skimmed through the picture-in-picture, and then they come back from break, and then Gage has a thing of glass, a glass board. He sets that across two chairs in the corner. So Gage got up on the top rope. I'm not sure what he was doing. So then Jericho falls up on the top rope. For the spot of the match, Jericho For 50 years old, he landed a top rope Frankensteiner to Nick Gage through this glass board. Ay, ay, ay. Oh, man. For a near fall. So, ay, ay, ay. So then Jericho, he went for Codebreaker, but then Gage countered and threw Jericho into the glass. The broken glass in the ring. Yeah, yeah. So then Gage then started wailing on Jericho with these light tubes, and then landed a pile driver on Jericho on the rest, because there was a big pile of glass in the ring from the glass board. So then Gage landed a pile driver on Jericho for a near fall. He broke off these light tubes and then started grinding them in the face of Jericho. And then Gage went underneath the ring and went for these big grouping of light tubes. And then all of a sudden, Gage gets in the ring and Jericho spews some mist in Gage's face, which I don't know how he got it. So then Jericho, he cracks the light tubes over Gage's head, lands a Judas effect on Gage for the win. Jericho a bloody mess. So MJF gave Jericho no time to celebrate. Afterwards, he announced that Labor 3 of the Labors of Jericho next week in Jacksonville against one of Jericho's famous rivals from WCW and Japan, the Jews, Juventud Guerrera, who has not been on TNT in 15 some odd years. And the stipulation is Jericho must win with a move from the top rope. So, very interesting for the third labor of Jericho. I mean, last week was a chair match versus Sean Spears, or was the match for Sean Spears. This match with Gage was sick. No other way to put it. Against Jericho. Now next week against Juventud Guerrera. It's gonna be fun. Interesting. See how Jericho looks next week, because after the match he looked like a mess. Just a mess. And props to Nick Gage. I mean, for his first match in AEW, couldn't have done it any better. Although it was a loss, couldn't have done it any better. But nonetheless, that's the review for you guys. Fight for Fallen, epic show. I believe it was 1.1 million viewers for AEW. I mean, it seems like they're getting steady for the last few weeks around over 1 million, which you like to see. You like to see them creep up. Now with Punk and Bryan, which are weeks away for debuting in AEW, it's only going to increase. It's only going to increase. So, but nonetheless, got a good show for you guys next week for returning to Daly's Place. We got Black versus Cody. We got Christian versus the Blade. We got Miro versus Lee Johnson. So some good stuff for next week. But and of course in 2 weeks, or excuse me, it's 2 weeks. Rampage. So be beginning to have your AEW reviews and your or Dynamite reviews and your Rampage reviews. But nonetheless, hope you guys enjoy this episode. Um, I'll be back obviously next week with sports topics and AEW review. But thank you. If you like this video, click the like button as well as click subscribe if you want to see this video as long as the rest. So thank you. Be safe. Peace. See you next week.